You're listening to this week's edition of Playcallers. New episodes dropping every Monday at 2:30 p.m. Central Time. Available to stream across all platforms. Also, be sure to check out this week's edition of the Tiger's Den podcast. New episodes dropping every Monday at 3:30 p.m. Central Time. Available to stream across all platforms.
Hello everyone and welcome to Playcallers podcast. Today we do not have a coach to interview, sadly, but we will be talking about some Auburn High School sports just in general. And I'm going to be joined by my co-host Trent Medley today. And Trent, how are we feeling?
We're feeling pretty good. Glad to be on this podcast and just converse about our thoughts about what's going on with Auburn athletics.
So yeah, honestly, I mean, right now the football team 10-0 on the season for the first time since 2009. And obviously, I mean, just a great job so far. This football team last week won 63-27 against Bob Jones. And Trent, what are your thoughts on that victory? And this week coming up, Thompson, the number 2 team in the state. And how are you looking, or how do you think Auburn will do in that matchup?
Well, my thoughts on this victory first are, Bob Jones I will admit, not as good as us, we're a different level than them. But, of course, every team that was in the playoffs was a great team. The first round of the playoffs, pretty much every single game was a blowout. Of course, you had the upset with Vestavia Hills and Mary Montgomery. I'm just really glad that our team could go out there and make a statement and just let everybody know that there's something to be taken serious. My thoughts about the Thompson game, one, it's mixed because I'm very excited, but I'm also fearful. One, I'm excited for revenge because, my first year here, we played them in the state championship, and that, of course, did not end well for us. And I'm just really hoping our team can go out there and flip the script this time, and I'm very confident in them too because we've put together a really well-balanced, strong, united team that the whole school can kind of get behind and be proud of. And then, Thompson, they're also, they've built up a reputation of just success overall, kind of like Tuscaloosa, Alabama. They still got Trent Seaborn, obviously a great QB. He was an 8th grader. He stepped up whenever he was playing. He played us in 2020, and he's still a good QB. And from what I've heard, they've got another QB that they kind of play a little bit, and he kind of just rushes. Offensively, they're pretty good. They're definitely not what they were 2 years ago or even last year. But defensively, I think is their strength. And overall, I think that game will be it'll come down to defense. It'll be a defensive game. I think their defense is offensively just as good as their offense. People say that a great defense is a good offense, or however that saying goes.
Yeah.
But, overall, I just think it's going to be a very defensive game. I'm excited, and I'm also kind of anxious to see the results of it.
Yeah, honestly, last week we both commentated the Thompson or the Bob Jones and Auburn game. And, that game last week was kind of the first half. Obviously, Auburn just got out to a huge lead. Omar Mapson with 5 touchdowns, and Jackson Kilgore was able to find his receivers pretty easily. I felt like that Bob Jones team, though, coming in was kind of a team that, we would expect to maybe play close with the Tigers, but it seemed like Auburn just was able to get the job done and, find ways to score.
Yeah, they definitely had their rhythm going there. They did, I feel like, leave up too many points for Bob Jones to score late in that second half in the fourth quarter. But overall, 63-27, that's still.
Yeah, it's still a pretty big victory. You like the points from your team on offense, 63 points obviously, but like you said, that is something to kind of worry about towards the end of the game, giving up 27 points. But I mean, those are second and third string guys. Those guys will be possibly starters next year. Some of them will be. And I mean, to be honest, it's really not too much to worry about because I feel like the first string defense will be able to get the job done against Thompson. And honestly, I mean, Thompson, like you said, yeah, they haven't been as good as usual this year. 3 losses on the season, but still, I mean, it's Thompson. You got to look at it that way and be like, it's Thompson. Anything can happen. And I mean, who knows? We'll see what happens tomorrow night in the game. But I just feel like this game's gonna be close. Could be low scoring. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, what's your score prediction?
Honestly, I do think if it's like a defensive battle, I feel like it's probably going to be somewhere around like 21-17, maybe like 24-21, who knows.
Yeah,
In that range.
I was thinking maybe 21-27 cuz of course, it's still being a defensive battle. Both of these teams are able to make some pretty crazy plays on offense.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, on the other side, like on Thompson's side, they actually have one good player, actually 2 good players, Anquan Fagans, who is committed to Auburn, and Jared Smith, who's also committed to Auburn. Both players, just had great seasons. Actually, Jared Smith opened the season against Grayson, which is the team from Georgia.
Yeah, he had that forced fumble,
and he recovered his own fumble.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And Anquan Fagans actually had a kick return at one point this year for 96 yards. So, I mean, this Thompson team's got a lot of talent. And like you said, Trent Seaborn, I mean, great quarterback. He proved to everybody in 8th grade when he played against Auburn at Jordan-Hare Stadium. He came in there confident, and you saw what happened. He ended up getting a huge win and won his team the state championship. And, I mean, honestly, though, this Thompson team, like I said, we'll see tomorrow night. But I feel like this is going to be a good matchup. And honestly, like, just in your perspective, what are, like, some other matchups you would say are probably games to look out for in the playoffs?
Oh, definitely Opelika versus Hoover. That's another one. Both of those teams, I think my rankings would have to be Auburn number 1, maybe either Thompson or Hoover number 2, and then Opelika in 4th. But, Hoover and Opelika, both exciting teams to watch, so that'll be good. And also, I think the Enterprise game will be a good matchup to look out for.
Yeah, because obviously, I mean, the Enterprise game, if Auburn beats Thompson, the winner of the Enterprise game, so the way it works is if Auburn beats Thompson and Baker beats Enterprise, it would be Baker and Auburn at Baker. And then if Enterprise were to win and Auburn were to win, it would be Auburn at home against Enterprise. So that would work out for the Tigers if that scenario worked out. And honestly, like you said, the Hoover-Opelika game, that's going to be a good game. This Hoover team, obviously a lot of history behind them. They used to have a MTV show on, they used to have an MTV show about them. So, I mean,
crazy.
Hoover team's definitely a team to look out for. Honestly, a stellar season they've had. A lot of controversy in the offseason with them, new coaching change, and then Opelika, new coaching change themselves. But, without their head coach this week due to some personal reasons. But
that'll definitely play a factor in that game, I think.
For sure, yeah. That's going to be still though. I mean, I don't know. Opelika might be able to get it together and win because this Opelika team, we saw them play here in Auburn.
It was close.
Yeah,
it was very exciting too.
If it wasn't for Jackson Kilgore, those last 2 drives and the defense, then Auburn would have had 1 loss on their schedule right now and probably wouldn't have won the region. But
I think that also gave us a lot of confidence.
Yeah, Central, that was another game too. Like obviously, Central and Vestavia Hills are playing each other tomorrow night as well, so it's also another big game. And this Vestavia Hills team's the Cinderella story.
Oh yeah,
the playoffs for sure because they were when Auburn played them. Auburn actually beat them handedly. It was a pretty bad victory.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that game.
A lot of people kind of overlook that game due to the fact that the records kind of are different. Like Central has 2 losses, and then Vestavia Hills has 5 losses. So
they just think Vestavia doesn't stand a chance.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. If I could pull it up really quick, let me check Massey rankings because I'm pretty sure that's their spread that they have for the game is I'm pretty sure it's somewhere around 10 maybe for that game. I could be wrong, but they usually, I know for the Thompson Auburn game, they have it only being, it's only supposed to be for Thompson 34-26 is what they have it.
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see. This playoffs has definitely been, it's definitely been a very interesting like playoffs so far, for sure. Because honestly, I mean, we've seen it. Auburn, the first round was kind of a lot of blowouts. Like Auburn won, Central won, Opelika won. The only close games were like, Baker. Baker had a close game with Hewitt, and Austin and Enterprise had a close game, but really, like, it hasn't been too much of like, what you would expect.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think they've been less desirable than you'd want for playoff matches. But I think some of the teams like Auburn and Opelika and Hoover coming in and their stories, and also Vestavia Hills with that upset, the stories they bring and the kind of energy they bring to those playoffs will really make the future of it very exciting.
Yeah, I feel like, honestly, Vestavia Hills, if they were to beat Central, that would be one of the most incredible things I've seen happen in a long time. And obviously, I mean, like we said, it's just crazy how you see a team like that kind of make it into playoffs because, Vestavia Hills had to fight their way in there, and they got those wins, those key wins.
Yeah. You think they got the potential to pull that off against Central?
I mean, honestly, I feel like they could. They have the offense to do it, but their defense is what kind of stands out to me is, like, their defense when they played Auburn was not too good. Like, Auburn ended up scoring, I believe, 21 points in the first quarter against them, so it wasn't really, what I expected. I thought Vestavia Hills would be a little bit better. And, now looking at the Massey rankings, it says Central 40, Vestavia Hills 27, so obviously they don't think too highly of the game right now. Obviously, that's considering, like I said, the record's 8-2 to 6-5.
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, we'll have to see as it plays on because I feel like tomorrow, obviously we'll be commentating the Auburn game, but we'll be looking at some of those matchups late, like during the game. And who knows? I mean, if Vestavia Hills gets the win, that's definitely something to look out for moving forward because I feel like Vestavia Hills could, maybe make a run for the state championship, which would be first time in a while that we've seen a team with 5 losses or even that many losses make it to the state championship.
Yeah.
But now, after talking about football for a little bit, I think it's time to talk about some basketball. Auburn men and women's basketball for the high school have started their seasons officially. And, I mean, the women, let's just talk about them for a little bit. This women's team, opened the season against Carver, beat Carver 47-32, and then recently, this past week, on Tuesday, beat Percy Julian 83-30. They beat Percy Julian 83-30, so...
Well,
I mean, honestly, this Tigers women's team just a great start to the season so far. And what are your expectations for the women's team this season?
Well, my expectations, I do think highly of them. Definitely regular season record wise. I think they got the kind of team and the unity to pull off a good record. But also my expectations in the postseason, they kind of fell off from an upset last season, and I'm kind of hopeful they push further than that for this season.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we have, some returning, or we have, Kalia Tolles returning for the season. Last year was a key player on the Auburn team. She's returning at point guard this year. So, honestly, that's one key thing to look at, And also you have Daly Alsobrook and Brooke Hallman returning, 2 elite three-point shooters. Just a great, I mean, honestly, this team, just great chemistry throughout the season last year. A tough way to end it, in the playoffs. But I honestly feel like this team this year is definitely way different than we've seen. And I feel like this team could do something, honestly, make it maybe to Birmingham for the state championship possibly. But, I mean, obviously the season did just start. It's early in the season. Their next matchup will be against Lafayette on the 20th of November. And, they'll have Charles Henderson. They won't really get into region play for a while. But honestly, this Tigers team definitely it's gonna be interesting to see what they do. Definitely 83-30 win against Percy Julian stands out to me. That was a big win. I know Percy Julian's not considered a very good basketball school, but still, this Tigers team definitely able to get some big wins against Percy Julian and also Carver.
Yeah, with them, as long as they have people in their coaching like Coach Pritchett, I think they've always been a really interesting team and someone to watch out for in the regular season and the postseason, and always really fun to watch. I remember watching their games, and I mean, a lot of them they would be competitive. Some of them would be competitive, and others would be very very high scoring blowouts. And I think they're very well rounded, but their specialty is definitely at the 3-point line, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. That's last year. That's really what helped the Tigers get to that. They got to, I believe it was the Final Four, and that's what really helped them. The 3-point shooting is what got them there, and if they keep that up, who knows? We'll see what happens later down the road. Because, like I said, they don't really play their toughest opponent in the next few games. I believe is I think it's Enterprise. Enterprise is in 3 or 4 games. I'm pretty sure. I don't know.
Yeah, they got Lafayette, Charles Henderson, and Lynette, and then they have Enterprise on the 27th.
Yeah, Enterprise will be a close game. That Enterprise team last year was actually pretty decent. So I'll be interested to see, like I said, this Tigers team, what they can do obviously in region play and out of region play. We'll see what they've got going for them. But now we'll move on to the boys' side of things. The men did struggle. Their first game of the season against Carver did lose 73-59. Not a good look. This men's team last year had an incredible season. A lot of guys left last year. Yeah, last year, Jade Nichols and Bradley Pearson graduated from the team. So definitely some key players that have moved on and are in college now. And this is a new Tigers team. Obviously, some guys pulled up from JV from last year. But, that first game against Carver kind of did stand out to me. Carver is a good team, though. They're a very good team. I've heard about it a lot. A lot of people have been talking about how good they are.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, 73-59 at home, not a good look. But then you bounce back this past week against Percy Julian. You won 70-56. So good job by the Tigers to bounce back there. They do have a game. They did have a game last night against Lafayette. I believe they won 82-14 was the final score. So good job by the Tigers to get a win last night. And they will play Lafayette again on the 20th, which will be here. And honestly, this Tigers team, it comes down to just, you got a lot of youth on this team. And if they can kind of gel together throughout the season, I feel like they'll be able to get things going. You really got to look out, in region play with Central, Opelika. They're 2 really good teams, and it's going to be tough for the Tigers this season. But I feel like Coach Brandt's going to be able to get the job done, and kind of just want to hear your thoughts on Auburn Tigers men's basketball.
Well, like you said, they lost some pretty key players last year who graduated, like Jaden Eccles and Bradley Pearson. But also, they have really good players like Antoine Daniels and Tabari Allen who last season they've performed pretty well, and they've also got some seniors this year that hopefully they can use the max of their potential this year, like Mark Basil and Brooks Orr. And I just think this team also, like the women's team, they've got a great coaching staff, great culture, and they'll always be able to pull something off, and just a team that you always want to look out for.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, to highlight more players that also weren't mentioned, Carl Lindsay returning from last year's team, and then also Cash Reef, Peyton Plott, who do play on the football team. They won't be ready until after football season's over. And then Trey Ross, a junior as well this year. He was a sophomore last year. Magnus Davis, and also Hampton Jordan, who is a sophomore, was a freshman last year, but listed as 6'7", and very good player. We saw him play a little bit last year. So this Tigers team, like I said, is a young team. it's going to take a few games to gel together and kind of get the chemistry going. But I feel like once they get that going, I feel like they'll be able to, get some wins on the board and just roll like they did last year. I mean, last year they had a great team. If you look at it, I can go back to last year's schedule, and as you see, 27-6 last year, and we're 5-1 in the region. And look at this too. Like, a crazy stat is the men's team lost at Carver the first game last year, and they won to Prattville and Brubaker Tech the 2 games after that. So who knows? If this men's team can kind of get going and get things right on track, I feel like they'll be able to, do the same thing they did last year, maybe even do a little bit better with the schedule they have, because, last year they did play Carver twice and they ended up beating them that second time. So I'll be really interested to see what Auburn can do. Got a lot of games remaining and long season ahead of them.
Yeah, and also, like you said, with those tough matchups, especially in the region, like against Opelika and other teams like Central, last year, I believe they beat Central in the regular season, and they lost to them in the region tournament. And then, but that just goes to show you that those were 2 pretty close teams, and that's what the record shows, that they were close matchups. And then, of course, like, that shows me, and that leads me to believe that they have the potential to beat these really good teams and play on the same level and make some moves in the regular and into the playoffs.
Yeah, honestly, basketball season's still a long way to go. We'll see how it goes, down the road. Maybe the next podcast we talk about, maybe Auburn has like 4 or 5 wins, so we'll see. But another sport, just like the last sport I kind of want to highlight, because we haven't mentioned them in a long time, Auburn High Volleyball. Auburn High Volleyball did end up making the playoffs, but did sadly get defeated. This was on October 23rd, because we have not had an episode in a long time. They were defeated by Vestavia Hills 3-0. Did get swept. But honestly, what a job by Coach Wheatley and his staff to come in here first season and get the Tigers to a 31-10 record, and they were 4-1 or 4-0 in the region. So just a great job by Coach Wheatley and his staff. And honestly, what were your thoughts on this volleyball season?
Well, my thoughts on this volleyball season was, going into this season from the off season, they had pretty high expectations bringing in Coach Wheatley from Florida, and people were obviously kind of hopeful that they would make some moves, and they did go and making a pretty good run in the playoffs. But I think they played very well, and their record in the regular season showed that. And I think maybe the problem is for this season that they can improve next season is really just the chemistry and having the time to play each other and develop the unity.
Yeah, honestly, I agree there, because I feel like the Auburn could probably, use some of that next year. And the team still, you're going to keep majority of your players next year for the volleyball team. You're going to keep a lot of them, because most of them were juniors this year. So you're definitely going to have that chemistry back next year for senior season. And I feel like that's going to go well for Auburn and the volleyball team. And Coach Wheatley definitely did a good job in his first year here on the Plains. And I can't wait to see what he does next year.
Yeah.
But that will do it for episode 4 of the Playcallers podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed listening to this podcast. Go check us out on YouTube and Spotify for more videos or more podcasts like this. And have a good evening.